Hmm.
All right, hello, welcome back to the Messengers of Hermes show. We are in the last episode of Percy Jackson for season 1, and it was a season. That's what I'll say. We're gonna get into it, do a full breakdown. But before we do, I'm joined by my friend Logan,
Hello.
and let's just get into it. What were your thoughts overall on the final episode of the season?
I'll be honest, it was a lot better than the first, or not first two, the previous two. I did very much enjoy it more than those.
I agree. I think for me, it suffered from the same problems that I've had throughout the entire season. That's not to say it's like as bad as the last two episodes have been. I do think it was better than those two.
Yep.
But it just the things that I didn't like about episode like say 2 or 3 or 4 kind of was what was I didn't like in this episode. And it's been a running theme. It just kind of felt like more of the same. Like the issues I've had in the past throughout the entire season are still the same issues I'm having now. But yeah, I mean, I think overall it was definitely a better ending than I thought we were going to get, given the last 2 episodes. But let's get directly into the episode. And actually, before I get into the episode, me and Logan will be doing a conclusion of the entire season, like just to wrap up our final thoughts on the season. It probably won't be that long, but we will be doing that. That'll be kind of our final thing with Percy Jackson, unless there's a season 2 or something, which I'm assuming there will be.
Probably.
But we open on basically picking up where we left off, except we don't get straight into the Ares stuff. It's them kind of staring down Ares. And then we also get a little bit of a voiceover from Luke, which I thought was really interesting. And I think I'm just going to separate this now because I think it makes it easier to kind of just go through the episode. We've kind of done this in the past as well, where kind of break up some of the plots going on. And so we, throughout this episode, had a few scenes of flashbacks with Luke and Percy that would have gone back to like between episode 2 and 3. And so I want to ask Logan, what were your thoughts on the flashbacks?
I liked them because they were, they're part of the book in a sense.
Yeah.
As always, they switched it up some. I know this is one of your big things with it, so I'm just gonna go ahead and say it out of the way because I agree. It's very out of place.
Yep.
But I did like it. I am also confused. I've never been to New York or anywhere up in that area of New York. And I don't think they say in the books. I don't remember there being a giant, is that a birch forest?
I have no idea. I wasn't paying
Like,
attention.
they look like birches, but I'm not sure. I'm not a tree guy.
You're being a nerd right now. Is what you're being.
Just a little bit, a little tree nerd. But yeah, I just thought it was weird because I was like, that's a weird tree to choose. Meanwhile, all the other trees around the camp are like pines and, just like more
Yeah.
northern like trees. These are very small, skinny trees. So I don't know. It was very interesting to see, but I did like the scene with some of the more or less rubble, the old pillars and stuff thrown
Mhm.
around. It did look very nice. I do like the scene more than what it was. I forget how exactly it was in the book, but it was just like a spot with rocks, kind of like in the Capture the Flag. That's some of these scenes were meant to be like in that spot, and they just kind of
Yeah.
switched some stuff around. So I did like it for the most part, but the episode placing was very strange.
Yeah, but before I actually give my thoughts on that plot line, because there's a lot to unpack with that, I want to say I do think when we look at just production value on a level of, okay, what did we expect from Disney putting money into the show? Show was stunning. I mean, this episode specifically had a number of just great visual moments, and we're going to talk about a lot of them as we go through the episode, but I wanted to give the show its flowers. It did a really good, like, this is by far the best visuals of the entire show.
Oh yeah.
I also want to say the music was really good as well in this episode. I think it was the best of the entire show as well. So I think a lot of the stuff along that part of it was really good. I thought the acting in this episode was really good, and we'll kind of get to certain moments where I think the acting was standout performances. But yeah, so looking at the flashbacks, I think that my issue with the flashbacks is there's a number of reasons. I'm not going to talk about one of those reasons until we get to later in the episode because it kind of comes up at that point. But I do think it was very strange to have these flashbacks appearing in the last episode, given that this is the climax of the show. Or I guess it's not the climax for me, because the climax was kind of the last episodes, but like this is kind of like your falling action, I guess, your resolution. It's
And I'm
just
the nerd.
yeah, I know English terms. I know. But the thing is, to me, it just feels like if we're gonna do these character building stuff, it should have been layered throughout the season. Like maybe we get one of these flashbacks every single like episode, maybe like 3, 4, 5, or 6. Or what I think which would have made more sense is when we're getting them meeting Hermes, the Lotus Hotel. Even though I don't particularly like that plot, you could have put these in there then, because it makes more sense given what Luke's actually talking about and how that relates to the reveal at the end of the episode. And so I did feel like it really didn't help the pacing. And that's not to say I didn't really like these flashback scenes, what they stand for, how it explores the world, just the dynamics between the gods and half-bloods, demigods, and all that is really good, right? The dialogue in these scenes are very good. Even when we get like the first one, a lot of it is about like you're not born, like you don't choose to be born into this world. You're just put into it, right? And so you got to do what you can with that. And I also like, the other stuff around here, like you have to understand the rules. You have to know what someone else is going to do, right? So that you can use that against them. All that's really good. It doesn't feel natural in the placement of where they were put at. And so the way I view these scenes and why they're here is because we haven't seen much of Luke, right? We had, after episode 2, there's no more Luke up to, I think, episode, is it 6? I think. Yeah, it's beginning of episode 6. We see him briefly. So it was one of those things where it's like they probably felt the pressure to establish Luke even more as a character, which again, I don't think they needed to do, because that was the whole point of episode 2. Episode 2, they really honed in on Luke and Percy. They took away the Annabeth aspect of that and gave it to Luke. So what I think would have worked better if they would have layered it throughout the entire season. They had put more into, okay, let's just give something of Luke almost every episode so that it feels more natural, right? That relationship is built more between him and Percy. And then in this episode, it just feels like you kind of threw all of it at us, and it feels like it's there just because of that reveal at the end. So we'll talk about when we get there, but that was my overall like thoughts on that. I don't know, not Percy. I was supposed to call you Percy, Logan. But Logan, I don't know if you have anything else you want to talk about on the flashbacks before we get to like more of the main story.
No, you summed that up just about perfectly. I agreed with every point there.
All right, so that kind of moves us back into this fight with Ares, or what's all happening here. And I like instantly that kind of Percy is just not having it, right? This is very much how the book goes. Percy's just very antagonistic. After he's been through the underworld, this big issue, right? He had to leave his mom behind, very stressful point. He's just like, no, I don't care. We're going into a single combat, and the first to draw blood gets to keep the bolt and the helm. Or basically, Ares would give up the helm. And so I like that, right? I enjoy that we get straight to the point. Now, I wish more had been explained to Annabeth, because Annabeth's just like sitting here like, what's going on? Which I do find is funny. And it's not like, I'm glad that it didn't do one of these where it's like Annabeth is already up to speed, but it apparently all happened off screen. She's still kind of in the dark when this is all going down. But while, we're basically getting into this kind of fight sequence, right? We're kind of building it up. I like that, again, Percy's talking about Ares and how he was manipulated by Kronos. And I will say, I don't know if you agree with this, Logan, but I thought the acting from the actor that plays Ares, I don't know his name, but he did a fantastic job. I think this is probably one of the best performances of the show.
Yes, he did amazing with that. I was very surprised at how well. I mean, the actors and actresses, as I've always said, I think they all do great.
Yeah.
It's just what they're given. And the guy who plays Ares really showed it and was given just, as the book gives him. It was just, it was the perfect, he's the perfect match for the character.
Oh, yeah. I think out of all of the gods that we've seen in the first season, I think this is probably my favorite, I guess, depiction of the book
Yes.
version of these characters. I think that was the
Oh,
best one.
so far he's
Um,
the best.
by far, they nailed everything about it. And I think even going back to episode 5, like, they took that foundation of, they were basically showing you what Ares could be, and then they paid it off here. So I think it all worked really well. Something that, again, I
Mhm.
want to give them their credit, because it's not been something they've always done well in this show. I think, namely, Hermes and Hades come to mind, but I think they did this really well.
They did. I will say I actually have the screen currently paused right before they start fighting, and he's getting really angry at Percy. And I'm just looking at his face. It's one of those horrible pause faces, but
Yep.
it's actually a very good one, just showing the pure anger
Yeah.
in his face. And I do want to say this is completely off topic, but the quality of the scene is like so I don't even know, so detailed. I'm
Yep.
looking and I can see the reflection in his eyes of how they recorded this. I could see the lighting effect lights and everything.
It's great.
So just
This is by
yeah,
far,
to
like,
show how good it is.
visually one of my favorite parts of the entire season. So I'll let you go from here, Logan. Like, what did you think of the fight scene between Ares and Percy?
Um, I did like the fight, up until a certain point. I do like how Ares kinda taunts him at the very beginning when he's like, "Hey, when I kill you, tell your mom I said hi." Like,
That was a good
simple.
moment. I like
Yeah,
that.
a very Aries thing to do, so I liked it. And then when they actually start fighting, I do like how, they make it more realistic. Aries with
Yep.
his I don't know what type of sword, please do not be mean to me, but the bigger sword, I guess a great sword or a claymore even. I just love how he swings it and it takes him a lot to recover from it because it'd be a lot harder to swing than Percy's sword. So you
Yep.
got the guy with a slow, heavy sword, but it would really hurt, and you got Percy's with his light little sword. So it was kind of nice to see the difference instead of like swinging at the same speed and everything, God or not.
I agree.
But I like that, and I do like when he starts throwing Percy around. The music there was probably my
Yes.
favorite out of the
It's really good.
whole season. That was the best spot right there. And he just starts throwing him and kicking him, and I mean Percy just flies. He's
Oh,
just
yeah.
thrown across this floor. And I love how well they did that. I will say the one part I didn't like about their fight is when the water starts rising from the ocean, and I don't know if that's meant to be Poseidon doing it
I had the
or
same
Percy.
question. I had the same
Yeah, I'm
question.
like, because I would say it was Percy, because I mean, it would make sense because his dad's busy getting ready and or fighting with Zeus already,
There's
and
one
so he,
problem, though. There's one
yeah,
problem. Let me butt in real quick.
yeah,
The
butt in
only
real quick.
reason I question it is because of the end of the last episode. Because the end of the last episode's like, when Percy really needs my help or whatever, I'll be there. And so I don't know
Yeah,
if that's supposed to be meaning when he comes to save the day to help him from Zeus, or that means now, like in this part of the episode. So I was
yeah.
very confused on if this is Percy's power or Poseidon's power.
It could be both because it's you go from this, and then it's more or less Poseidon had to be watching him to help
Yeah,
him with the Zeus part. So I'm kinda it would make sense if it was Poseidon doing it, because if it was Percy, I'm sorry, but he has no clue how to use his power. I saw the arch part when the big old column of water grabbed him. If that was Percy, that was a big stretch, which I don't think it was. But the only other time we ever seen him really use the power, or maybe once again it was Poseidon, was back in the bathrooms. And
yeah.
that was very minute compared to the absolute tidal wave, well, not tidal wave, but the big old wave he sent in this scene.
Yeah.
So I was like, "That's a little too good to be him." But at the same time, the movies did the same thing, and I did like that scene, so I'll give him some slack.
Here's one thing I will say, like, they definitely exaggerated Percy's power compared to the book, but
Mhm.
I think given the way that they've in the show gone about with Percy's power, I don't hate it because at least it's kind of staying similar to the stuff he's done before.
Yep.
And you could say this is like at his most desperate fighting a god. Now, I will say, one thing that I think is different book to show that I did find intriguing is in the show, they really made it more like Percy has literally no chance against Ares. Like when they're actually dueling, right? Not when Percy uses his power, but like when they're actually sword fighting, Ares is just pretty much winning. Like I put down in my notes, like he was just getting his ass kicked. Like,
Mhm.
so I liked that aspect of it because the way the book does it to where they have it make sense is it's a constant the battlefield between Ares and Percy is constantly Percy is trying to stay in the water and just keep that ground because he knows the only reason that he is even blocking some of Ares' attacks is because his reaction and his ability in the water is enhancing his abilities. So having him, again, he's not in the water, he's not really playing for that advantage, and that being punished, like he's just not winning at all. I do enjoy, like that is a different take of doing the book's version of this. The thing I don't really get, again, if this was Percy's power, is I think it would have made more sense, given how much power that seems like it probably needed to take, was having like maybe Percy like get thrown into the water or something like that, and then he uses this power because he has his power amplified by the water and all that. But they didn't go that route, so you know, it is what it is. But even with that said, it looked great. Like everything in this scene, the tidal wave looked insane. The choreography was really good. Again, I don't have a lot of complaints here, right? Nope. Like this is how I kind of felt about the first half of the episode. I know we're not even at the first half yet, but I felt like in the first half, I was pretty positive about the episode. It's more like kind of the back half stuff that I had issues with. But after this happens, we see again, Percy gets Ares to bleed. He cuts him more or less, and that is the end of the duel. And Ares says that he has made an enemy for life and leaves the Helm of Darkness for Percy. It does look cool. It's not exactly what I thought it would be. But, you know, to each their own. But I do want to say, again, something that was another thing that was kind of lacking in this fight, and this is something I genuinely had a criticism of because it's kind of a big point of the book, is this is the first time we really see Kronos use some part of his power, right? Like the thing, it's implied in the book that the reason Ares stops fighting is because Kronos uses some of his power. It seems like time seems to slow down. There's almost a cold feeling around. Like Kronos is basically using his power here. And that's what kind of backs off Ares at this point. Because again, in the book, it's not a one-on-one type duel. It's like they're just going to kill each other. There's no like, oh yeah, whoever bleeds first thing. But yeah, I think that was a missed opportunity to at least introduce Kronos's power. Like, what does he do? Because up until basically like the last part of this episode, Kronos is just a name. Like, they don't explain what Kronos is at all. So if you're someone that has no idea what Greek mythology is, you haven't, read Percy Jackson before, you don't know who this is. Like, you just know that this is some sort of evil force that we don't like. But yeah. At this point, we basically get this like fake out thing because Percy thought his mom was going to be in this house. What's the correct terminology for this, for a house on the beach, more or less?
Beach house?
I guess a beach house, beach cabin. Like, but we see Percy return the helm to her, to the Fury, to get his mom back. Like, I believe so. I'm not good on names and a lot of these things, but again, I will say one thing that I want to ask your opinion on this. So our group has a conversation after giving the Helm of Darkness away, and it's about how they're going to proceed. What did you make of this conversation? Because like the conversation is more or less, what do they do with the bolt?
I liked it. I mean, it was just your typical, how at least they're talking about how to go along with this. I mean, it's semi-argument, semi-not, but I do like how they're trying to decide what's best instead of all just agreeing kind of right away, which I think is what they do in the book. So it's kind of nice to see that change.
Well, so there's a bit of a difference because again, this kind of goes back to the whole thing that they've already basically failed the quest because the solstice has gone past, right? So the wars already happened. So the difference in the book is like there is no conversation. It's just we've got to get the bolt back, right?
That's
like
right.
That's the only option. Here they try, and again, I didn't like the scene because it doesn't make a lot of sense when you really think about it. Because Annabeth is like, oh yeah, we shouldn't go give this to Zeus. And I understand her reasoning. Her reasoning is more or less she doesn't want Percy to die because that's what she thinks is going to happen. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, what do you think is going to happen to Percy if he just takes Zeus's bolt, like, and just does nothing with it? Like, I'm just sitting here and I'm like, okay, so on one hand, you have Percy gives the bolt back and we hopefully avoid a war. On the other hand, we have Percy goes back to Camp Half-Blood and probably is going to die because Zeus is going to come kill him. It doesn't really seem like a choice to me. Like, it's just like,
No. Yeah.
we should just do this to avoid millions of people dying.
Yeah. And
And Percy dies in either situation. So
yeah, and being the goddess of, or the daughter of the goddess of wisdom, you think she would think of this, or would have thought that through, or at least kind of realized that halfway through.
my common issue with the show is that our
They
characters
really,
seem super smart when it comes to, oh yeah, we know what something is, but then they're super dumb when it comes to logic sometimes.
yeah, it's kind of sad.
But it's not the biggest deal because we all know where it was going. It was just something where I'm like, okay, this seems like it should have just been a cut thing. But, you know, at this point, Percy basically tells them to go back to camp to basically keep an eye on Clarice, get her imprisoned and all that stuff.
Tell them
Because
what's
again,
going on.
he still thinks that Clarice is the one that stole the bolt more or less for all this. But again, I've never bought into that plot, but at least they're keeping consistent with the stuff they've established. But then we instantly skip from this point to then Percy being at Olympus, which again, I think is a good change. Like, we don't really need to have this whole thing where we figure out how to get to Olympus and all this stuff. Like, just skip there. We don't need this travel time in between like we get in the book. Good change. Perfect.
Yep.
Doesn't, you don't need like, oh, Percy freaking out in an airplane. Like, it's not needed. Now, with that being said, I wish this logic applied to other stuff in this show, because at other points of the show, they make a huge deal about, like, how do we get from point A to point B type thing. There's another part of this that I've kind of just thinking of while I'm talking about. Like, the show is played up that Percy is much more of a wanted criminal. He can't get public transportation, and that's never actually wrapped up that I know of in this show. So that is a little interesting. I don't know. Is there anything, Logan? Because I didn't watch the scene at the end. Is there anything about like Percy is not a wanted criminal anymore?
No, they never actually said anything about that.
I guess
It's
we're just
that,
supposed to imply it. I guess now I don't know.
I guess. I mean, they never, like, they hinted at it for. Whoa, what episodes was that? St. Louis was number 4.
Well, yeah. At this point,
Yeah,
they think Percy is he basically
Yeah,
he just bombed the arch or something. He's a terrorist.
yeah. They think he's a terrorist. Yeah, which is kind of a big deal. And then the last 3 episodes after, well, those 3 episodes after that, I mean, he's in Las Vegas. A lot of people gonna be looking around. I don't know if it makes it out that far.
Well, I mean,
which I would hope it would, but
think
yeah, they just
about the
ignore him.
reasoning that they want Hermes' car, because they can't take public transportation.
Yeah.
They specifically mentioned that. So
Yeah.
it's a little,
It's very
it's a little bit of issues that, again, the book doesn't have because it fixes their problems, but not that important once again.
No,
But
not
this
a big
is
deal.
going to get us to, we get to Olympus. I want to see so what are your thoughts on the depiction of Olympus?
I actually like it. It's I will say it does look a lot like Asgard from Marvel, which, I mean, I guess, they're both more or less like the heavens, so it makes sense that it would look a lot like that.
Yeah.
But I found it very interesting. If you look around when you pause it, you actually see different styles of temples. Now, I don't know the names, but it's just you see your classical domed ones. You see not trying to be rude to any group or anyone here, but like some semi-Japanese looking like roofing. I don't know how to explain it, but you see that. Some that look like it was from India. It was just nice to see different temple looks amongst all the Greek ones. I don't know if
Good for
that's meant
world
to.
building. Well,
Yeah, it's good for world building.
I would
wonder.
say it's because it's, we talk about how Mount Olympus, or Olympus, I guess, it changes location. So, it's just adapting architecture over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a good way of just building and filling out the world.
It makes sense, but I was also wondering, and this is probably very far-fetched, but it'd be kind of cool if they make more than just the Percy Jackson series, like how Rick did with all the books. You have, I don't even remember how many he has. He has the Egyptian, the Nordic. I think he has Indian, like
Don't look
India.
at me. I've only read the Greek, and I've read, the Greek, the Roman, and then the Egyptian.
Yeah, but it would be kind of cool to see like all of them like living in one place, which would
That'd be
make
cool.
sense for all the temples. Not fully, but it'd still be kind of interesting because they do mix the stories in the books with the Nordic and the Greek.
Yeah.
So And then there's also a very short thing about the Egyptian and the Greek, so I'm a little curious about that. But, back to the the main focus on this, I do like how it looks. I am curious, there is one scene where it shows the zoomed in part of the main arch entrance, and you see 3, or at least I only oh, wait, maybe 4 people? 4 or 5. I see 5 figures as I'm looking at this. Very subtle, but if you look, you'll see them. It was I don't know, I just think it's kinda weird because they don't look like anyone we would know. 'Cause they like, 3 of them have horns on them, so I don't know, maybe if they're just satyrs or
It could just be some random people to fill out
I say
Olympus,
it
just some
it was just
passerbyers.
I guess, but it's weird because you don't see anyone else, and then just, like, in that little scene, it lasts, like, a second or 2, you just see 5 silhouettes, and I just thought it was kinda strange. I don't know if maybe anyone else has ideas on as of who they are or why they were there.
Yeah, that'd be good for the comments.
Yeah.
Just to add my own thoughts to it, I thought Olympus looked beautiful. I think it was very well done. I don't really have any complaints about it. Okay, I have one thing that's not. It's not exactly something to do with this episode or Olympus as a whole. I do wish like they had done what they did in the book, where Hades' palace is a reflection of Olympus, to where like it shows like his jealousy, how he's kind of petty. I like that. That's just nice little attention to detail. But
Yeah, that would be cool, but also this Hades, he wasn't like that. He was the, "I don't care.
I
They do
know,
whatever they
I know.
want. I'm fine."
It's just another for me, just a problem with the Hades depiction. But
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, I get it. I get you.
um, also we didn't actually talk about this part, and I'm just noticing it on my notes as we go down. But I do like the dialogue as well for Luke talking about Annabeth's spider fear, and talking about how like the demigods are they're kind of viewed as being small, but they also can be very scary, right? I did like that dialogue because it does play a lot into Luke's kind of thought process and a lot of his motivations, which was good.
Mhm. I say it was
Um,
very interesting.
so at this point, we see Percy basically staring down Zeus on his throne, and I wanted to ask your opinion on what did you think of the character of Zeus?
Um, I like him. I forget the actor's name, but I do very much like that actor. I think he played Zeus very well. I kinda wish they would add some not really, make his voice deeper in certain parts, but maybe add, like, an echo or something to when he was, like, really angry because it just didn't have the oomph I was expecting it to. But they also haven't done that with anyone, so it was a little interesting. Like, Ares' voice was
Yeah,
just purely the actor's voice. I will say, going off topic from Zeus, I don't even know what to call it, throne room, I guess?
yeah,
It
that's more or less,
well,
yeah.
yeah, a little council ring, the Star Wars stuff. It looked cool, but it's also not what I would expect. Like, all the giant columns behind them are, like, falling apart, and their chairs are all the same except for Zeus's, Hera's, and whoever's to his left. I'm not sure who'd that be.
It might be. Was it? Well, I know Poseidon's chair is supposed to be very different from the others in the
Yeah,
book, but I
the
wasn't paying
full
attention to the chairs, so
I gotcha, but they just all looked I don't know, it looked very non what I would think gods would live in. Like, I'm sorry, but I picture maybe it's just because it's basic, they wanted to change it, your marble white pillars, like, of pure beauty. Like
mhm.
the flooring, how you can see the reflection. If the columns were white and pristine, I just figured it'd be something like that, but instead, it almost looks like Hades' palace. Like, it looks just ruins, and I just thought it was weird.
Yeah. I mean,
Which is
that's fair. I mean, there is a plot at the end of the series that may creep up because of that, but, you know,
yeah, it might, but that's supposed to be for semi-different
yeah, it's
stuff.
supposed
But
to be
yeah,
for different reasons, but they could
yeah,
try and justify it like that. I don't know. But I will say, I really liked Zeus as well. I think they did a pretty good job here. What I was missing from Hades is what Zeus got. Like Zeus had an aura. Like the actor, the what they gave the actor to do, he comes off as very menacing. Like this is actually a
mhm,
powerful being that you do not want to mess with. And
yeah,
so I like that because this is what Hades should have had. Hades should have had this, but then his own set personality and stuff like that. But he should have had this feeling around him.
would've been cool if he did.
And so one thing I did want to point out when you're talking about like Zeus's voice, there is a moment, right, when Percy is protesting to, again, the war needs to not be fought and all this, and he doesn't want to leave yet because he's talking about Kronos and all these things. Zeus shuts him down, and there's a really good audio effect here where I don't know if it's they alter the actor's voice playing Zeus, or it's because of the thunder happens at the same time as him talking, so it makes him seem, I don't know, just makes him seem more intimidating, which I really thought was good. It was a really good way of using audio to set the stage for this kind of scene with Poseidon coming in at some point. But yeah, so we get this conversation back and forth. It's almost straight from the book, but we see Percy saying that Kronos was attempting to steal it and he was manipulating Ares and all this stuff. But Zeus says he failed, right? He did get the bolt back and he brought this news, which is, Zeus appreciates it, but Zeus tells him he can go. And this is very much the way Zeus is, I feel like, in the book. This is all done a bit differently because Zeus and Percy do not talk one-on-one. That's not a thing that happens in the book at this point. It's more Percy walks in and Poseidon and Zeus are already like talking to each other as he walks in. So again, this all happens differently, and I don't mind the way they did it. I thought it allowed for more of a interesting dynamic between the two. But again, Zeus says this news is the only reason that he is still alive, and he says that he has a war to fight, which is interesting given that the solstice has already passed. And again, this is my biggest problem. Now that we've seen the whole, season, changing the solstice thing had there was no real reason it was here. You could have just made it the way it should have been, and then you don't have like some stupid things you have to kind of fix at the end, right? Where Zeus is like, yeah, but I still got to do my war thing. It's like, the war should already be started. Why are we sitting here talking for? Like, this has been happening for a while. You took away all your stakes to like everything to be. And then, yeah, it's just really, really weird to me the way that they did this. It just seemed like a change that didn't need to be made. It had really no positive effect to me. It had only negative effects. But it is what it is. And at this point, we get Percy doing a monologue, which I thought was fantastic. It was pretty much a culmination of the entire season, right? Seeing how the Greek gods treat each other, how they treat their kids, how they treat even monsters and regular people. Now they become into like a Medusa character. But all this was good. It was done very similar to the way the book did it. And yeah, so this is all pretty good. But at this point, we see Zeus about to kill Percy, and Poseidon steps in. So, Logan, I want to ask, did you have anything else you want to add for that section of it? And then going forward, what did you think about the Poseidon and Percy stuff?
I didn't have anything to add on to the section before that we're about to move away from.
Yeah.
Moving on to, I guess, the next little part where Poseidon comes in. I will say I absolutely love how they made the lightning bolt look.
It looked good.
I thought it was pretty cool. I do like how he stepped in and saved Percy, and then just how he kind of calms Zeus down a little just by saying, I surrender, and I'm already done with this fight to help save Percy.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was all like really good. One thing I did find that I really enjoyed, because there's this point of the story right here where they talk about, or Zeus says, why shouldn't he kill Percy, right? He's basically this kid that shouldn't have been born, right? They all agreed not to have kids. Yeah, forbidden son. And Poseidon just throws it right back in his face going, yeah, but what about Thalia, or Talia, however you say her name?
Yep.
I do like that. It's a good thing to like, just to reference back to her, being something that was relevant. And all that was good. It's beside not taking other people's bullshit, which is very apparent in someone like Percy, which is something they kind of talk about.
Yep. I will say real quick, I do like how he insults. Oh, I shouldn't say insult. I guess he does. He insults Zeus by saying, well, you got a forbidden child as well. But then he does compliment her by saying, who still inspires all demigods, or whose bravery it still inspires all the
Yep.
demigods. And I was like, okay, that's good. He's not just dogging her. He's
Yep.
just kind of going after Zeus, so he'll be not as angry, maybe, I guess, because going after the person rather than their child, I guess, isn't as bad.
Yeah. I
So I did
agree.
like that part.
Again, I like all the dialogue between Poseidon and Percy. Again, straight out of the book. They were very, when it comes to the dialogue at this part of the, scenes and stuff, they were very accurate to what happens. But I also do love that Poseidon calls Ares a moron because, let's be honest, he is a moron.
Definitely, yep.
But yeah, but I do think something that I find, I don't know how to like put my finger on it, because Poseidon more or less gets very emotional about Sally, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't know if that really adds up. He's a god, like he's been a thing for thousands of years, like. I don't know. I feel it just seems really odd that he's very hung up over this human woman. Like, yes, in the book, he calls her basically one of a kind, right? But I don't know. Logan, what's your thought on that? Because to me, it kind of felt weird, but.
It was weird, but at the same time, it does sound right because he was willing to break the rule that the three brothers have made. Of course, Zeus had already broke it before that with Thalia or Talia, but it just kind of, it makes sense. He was willing to do that just for her, and then he still cares about. Well, it seems that he still cares about her. So I liked it. I just thought, it kind of kept with showing how wonderful Sally really is because she's great with Percy. I mean, she was something special enough for a god to come down and be like, "Hey, I really like you."
Hmm. I mean,
So
I get your point.
yeah, I liked it. I can see why you and some people probably won't like it, but I found it rather nice. And I will backtrack a little
Go
before
ahead.
that when Zeus and Hades, or not Zeus and Hades, Zeus and Poseidon are talking in Greek, ancient Greek. I thought that part was kind of cool. I wasn't expecting it.
That was good.
Hmm. But
Um,
anyways, moving on.
but at this point, we see Percy's given a pearl, and he ends up back at Thalia's tree, back at camp, which, sweetened to the point. They do cut off something that I think is, we'll talk about it later because it's not a major point of the story at this point. It's just something we'll talk about later. But as he is returning back, I really like that they almost took away all of the cheering. They took away almost all the sound, and then brought it back with their own like soundtrack, and then let the music come in. It kind of feels like very normal. Like if you're in Percy's head, it's like you're someone that's been an outcast, you've been bullied, all these things your entire life, and so having that many people cheering for you, it almost would feel like deafening. Like you wouldn't really process it all at one point. So I really liked that. That was just very nice attention to detail, from just visual and then music wise and sound design, which was good.
Hmm.
We see that Clarice is still not arrested, which I actually liked. Now, again, it's gonna kind of get backtracked later on, but I think it makes a lot of sense, like why you wouldn't imprison Clarice right away. It's like, okay, you're gonna try to imprison the leader of basically the cabin of war and fighting. Like, it's gonna lead to a lot of conflict, and especially
Yep.
because you have no proof at all.
Yep. Yeah. The group of hotheads, and you're gonna put their main person in. I don't think that's gonna go over well.
And then think about it, like if you're just like a bystander and you're like, oh yeah, of course the kid that doesn't like Clarice is gonna say that she stole it. Like,
Yeah, man. Who would have thought of that?
it made a lot of sense. Like, I think this is a logical, rational decision making here from Annabeth and Luke, right? That makes a lot of sense. And so at this point, they're kind of talking like, yeah, we basically the reasoning I just told you. And then Annabeth's like, okay, she's going to keep an eye on Clarice. Okay. And then at this point, Luke and Percy go again away from camp to talk about what they can do, who are Clarice's allies and all this stuff, and all of that. And at this point, I'm gonna turn it over to you, Logan. What did you think of this the big reveal, and all of that happening after this point?
I was very mixed on this part, but before I do that, another backtrack again.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but when he's walking past all the other campers and they're all cheering and clapping for him, I don't know if this is just me hoping or maybe this is what they intended. He goes past two Asian boys who seem to be brothers, and I'm kind of
Hmm.
hoping that those are the two twin brothers that
The Stalls,
are
I
from.
think. I think
Yes,
that's
yeah,
it's like
the Hermes
Connor
kids,
and Trevor or something like that.
something
I
like
know
yeah,
one of them's
yeah.
Connor. I can't remember what the other one's named.
I'll say
I
they're
think it's
not
Travis
major.
though.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. But they're not major characters, and they don't really show up till, the 2nd book, you know,
Yeah.
no major spoilers, everyone, so no big deal. But I just thought it was kinda cool how they added that in, if that's the
Hmm.
case.
Well,
Also, if
yeah,
it is
that's the thing
sorry.
with book one is like, especially I feel like the early kind of books, there's not a lot into like who are the other people at Camp Half Blood. It's kind of like you kind of got like your set couple people, and then it kind of the world expands as we go
Yeah,
forward. But
yeah, so it was just nice to kinda see that, and hopefully, those will be the 2 kids in the 2nd season if we get one.
yes,
But, anyways, I just thought that was kinda interesting. Also, it shows that Hermes has a type. Anyways, moving on to
it
the,
is known.
yeah, it is now. Moving on to where Luke takes Percy back to where they were training. I just thought it was kind of weird because it's very away from everyone else, like a very far distance away. I mean, it's probably closer in the show than it was in the book,
Yeah,
which is also at a very, very, very different time. So
yeah.
it's different, but it wasn't in a bad way. I liked it. I will say the fireworks were very. I did like the color and how they looked in the scene.
Hmm.
So I thought that was kind of nice. But, them talking, do you want me to, like, completely take over
Yeah, you
or
take over, and then
okay.
I'm gonna go on for a while when you get done. So
Okay, so they start talking, and then, Luke starts asking about the prophecy. He's like, I don't really believe in those anyways." And then Percy's like, "No, that you have to. They become true." And he's like, "Yeah, prove it." And so then Percy's taken off the list, and Luke's like, "Okay, yeah, there's this, there's that." But then they get to the one about a friend who shall betray you. And then Percy just, like, adds it up immediately, which I don't know how I feel about. I don't know what you thought about that, Eric.
oh, we're gonna get there. Just keep going.
Oh, okay. So
I'm
anyways
gonna go on for a long time.
oh, gotcha. I'll speed mine up then. So then, Percy realizes it really quick, and as Luke starts to I mean, I guess more or less his true colors show, I do like
Yeah,
that the red firework goes off and it goes on his face. I was like, "Okay,
yeah.
we know they planned that. That's still kinda cool." So I'll stop there so you can go ahead, get on with your rant.
All right. Well, what have I said throughout all this season so far? I just talked about it in episode 7, in my little like what went wrong thing. We've talked about it in the last like 4 episodes. Why do our characters always know everything? Like, it just takes away from the character of Luke when it's now because in the book scene, Luke is completely in control. Right, he is completely in control. Yes, Percy has an unease feeling because, like, the rationale is like it's the last day of summer camp, more or less, and Percy's trying to figure out, oh, am I gonna stay here? Am I gonna go back to his mom and all that? And so Luke more or less lures him into the forest, saying, let's have a Coke. Right, you can't get Coke or any of that stuff in the camp. They go out to the forest, whatever. At this point, Luke starts unveiling the truth, right? He has a scorpion, that one sting, and you're basically dead, okay? And then that's when he tells his whole evil spiel, right? It's like, okay, Percy's gonna die. That now Luke is gonna just pull the rug out from under him. Percy does not figure it out until Luke betrays him. So it makes Luke so much more cunning. It makes him much more interesting as an antagonist. He's this force that's been, well, with the help of Kronos and some other stuff, has been pulling all these strings in the background, right? He's the driving force why we even had this story to begin with. And so his betrayal with Percy is just that big thing, right? Because in the book, it's way different because you don't, like have any real interaction with Luke outside of, like what ends up happening in like beginning of episode 6. That's it. And so all of this is really interesting because then you have Percy and Luke, and Percy's like, well, fight me then, right? And Luke's just like, no, why would I do that? You've just defeated Ares in one-on-one combat. Earlier on in the book, Percy actually does a move that actually outsmarts Luke. And so Luke is very wary that Percy is a very skilled swordsman. Even though Luke is also very, good at swordcraft as well, or not swordcraft, but swordsmanship. And so he thinks he's very smart about it. He's like, okay, I'm not going to let you just beat me down like that. The movie did it wrong, and now the show's done it wrong too. Luke is not an idiot. And so everything that happens in this part of it, right? At this point before we get to this part of the episode, I was at like an 8 out of 10 for this episode. This part alone dropped it down to like a 7 because I was just sitting here and I'm like, you just screwed up. You can't, this is the one part you cannot screw up. You can't screw up Luke's betrayal, right? And so Percy just figuring it all out almost on a whim, right? It's just like, okay, like, come on. And so the other part of this that doesn't work, and I purposely did not talk about it earlier when we were talking about the Luke Percy plot, is that this is not a surprise. Like, even if I feel like if you're a casual viewer, this shouldn't have been a surprise to you. Like, all of a sudden we start getting a bunch of scenes with Luke and Percy. And Luke is kind of saying some stuff that seems quite edgy. It kind of seems like, okay, that's interesting. Why are you saying that? Okay. It just feels like, okay, well, why did we do all this stuff? Because now everybody in the audience is like, oh yeah, Percy has this person that's going to betray him. It's obviously going to be Luke. It's not going to be Annabeth. It's not going to be Grover. And Percy has like 3 friends. So it's just, in my opinion, it was just so poorly done that if this had just been executed okay, like just it was fine. I wouldn't have had any problems with it. And that's the other part of it is like, so when we get into the sword fighting between the two, you might disagree with me on this, Logan, but I thought the sword fight was absolutely terrible. Like, it just looked bad to watch.
It was definitely not enjoyable. It was very odd fighting. It was,
yeah.
I mean, it matched when they were training with how Luke would constantly grab his arm because Percy would just thrust or swing and overswing.
Yeah.
But it just, as an actual fight, and I get that Luke wasn't trying to kill him, it was just very hard to watch in that sense.
It's just very weird because it's like, I don't understand why we did this. Like, we didn't need to do this. Like, all that needed to happen, and this works out perfectly, is you don't have him try to sword fight him. Hold on. But as I was saying, all you had to do was just do the plot from the book. Or you could even have it be what they set up. That it's like, okay, they're going to meet about Clarice. And then just, okay, Luke now has Percy alone, and he does his trap, right? He does the scorpion, he has his little monologue. And if you don't even want to have it where it wasn't the intent to kill Percy like they did in the show, Luke just sets up the portal, scrapes off the scorpion real quick, and leaves. The same effect. But I don't know if you want to talk about anything else with the Luke stuff before we move on. Just was I was not a fan of this whole section of the episode.
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't think it was as bad as you think it was. They definitely should have kept it to the book, and they definitely should have changed some stuff if they were going to do it like this. But it also wasn't like absolutely horrible to me. I mean, yeah, the fight scene was bad. The way they made Luke seem not as cunning as he should be, like he is in the books, was kind of sad. But I did like parts of it.
Okay,
I am kinda,
let me go back. There were good parts in his speech, because part of his speech is literally from the book.
Yeah, no,
it's just to me how the bad aspects of this scene outweighed for me the good aspects. Like, it kind of took away from the good parts of it.
They definitely did. But yeah, so I mean, it was still pretty rough. I did like you said, I like the parts that I guess they kept pretty straight from the book. There were some other non-book parts I liked, but one thing I will say is kind of sad, or I guess not sad, but a missed opportunity in a sense. But I guess only book viewers would catch it. Luke pulls his sword out, and I don't know if I overpaid attention to the minor things in this episode or what, but when I'm looking at it, you can tell that it's 2 different colors. and it's also a lot thicker than what it was in the earlier fighting training scenes, which maybe that's the reason they added it to this episode. And I don't know if this would be a major spoiler for
I don't know.
season 2. There's something special about what they do with that. That I don't
Yeah.
know if it was added, like, now, because I don't think it was in book 1,
Well,
but I do
the two color thing you can just kind of explain about like, oh yeah, it's different metals.
Okay. You want me to, like,
So,
fully explain it?
well, I mean, it's explained in book 1, like what it is,
Is
more
it?
or less.
Oh, see,
Like that he can open portals with it, and that, well, it's not explained how he opens the portals. He just does it.
no, he just does the portal. I meant the
But
other aspect of it.
that he can kill humans, and then he can also
Oh,
kill. Yeah,
he does
that's
say
in
that in
book
book
1.
1?
That's book 1. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind. No major spoilers. But yeah, he explains that the sword can not only hurt demigods and mythological creatures and things, but now it can actually hurt just normal human beings, which I thought was really interesting. Because I just, that's something Rick made that I thought was really cool. But I'm kind of sad they didn't explain that in the scene. And I mean, they did the portal thing, right? He doesn't explain in the book either. But I wish he explained that part because they're not meant to hurt normal humans, or I guess mortal things and beings.
So wait, are you saying like that they didn't explain like why it's bad? Because I'm pretty I thought in the episode they said like, yeah, like this can now, like it's two different. Maybe I'm misremembering because I've reread this chapter about 2 times already for this episode. So
Wow. I don't think he said anything. Well, shit. Now you're making me
I
doubt
don't know.
myself.
Viewers, if he did or did not, let us know.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't think he did, but I was like, dang. So now people who see the 2 different colors are like, why is there 2 different colors? And no
This
one
guy
knows
looks like
for
an
sure.
idiot.
Yeah, I mean, come on. You're supposed to use the same metal. Anyways, that was just something I noticed, and I didn't remember them saying. So moving on from that point.
Oh, wait, I just looked at my notes. I completely forgot about something else I didn't like about this scene. Annabeth then just pops out of nowhere, and I'm just like,
Oh, we weren't there yet.
well,
But okay, yeah,
we're there. The sword fight has
that's
happened.
fair.
It
We're
looks
there. Yeah,
bad, and then
we're there now. Yeah.
Annabeth just pops up, and I'm just like, what? What are we talking about? So either the rationale is either, one, Annabeth is just smart enough that she realized that Luke was either lying or was doing some sus activity. But then if she knew that, why didn't she just tell Percy? Like, why didn't she just, oh yeah, just like walk up when they're separated, or at least like, I don't know, it just feels really weird, like, because at any point Luke could have just killed Percy before Annabeth even did anything, so
Yeah.
it's kind of weird logic. But the other part of this that I thought was even more interesting is like, Annabeth like looks up to Luke as like a brother to her. Like, there shouldn't be any mistrust here. So I don't know, like, I'm just all over the place with why Annabeth is here.
Yeah, no, that it was very strange. I mean, it's also for the show lovers and non-book readers, it's the way they know her. She always is doing something with that hat of hers, which
Yeah.
she does in the books too, but like
It's
that's
not
like
to
her
this extent
thing.
though.
Yeah, no, it's her thing in the show. And
But
I
it's
will
just
say,
like, go
one part.
ahead. I'll talk
Okay,
about it in a second.
I'll say one thing I did like about the scene when Annabeth shows up, or I thought was very strange and different, was Luke's reaction to it. Yeah, I get that he can't just make Percy join him now and push him through the portal, but his face doesn't show the, "Oh crap, I have to change my plans now and everyone will know," but more of the, "Holy crap, she found out," which in the books, Annabeth has a crush on Luke,
Yeah.
and she's the one who's really upset by it. In this, it seems like Luke is upset by her finding out in the way she was, so it's almost like they've reversed who has the crush on who.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really important plot point too. Like,
Yes.
if you
Well,
just
yeah.
think about going forward, yeah, and we can't really get into spoilers, but
No.
especially for book 5, it's a very important plot line going forward. So it is kind of odd that they did do that. But yeah, I don't know. I just think Annabeth's logic is really weird here because in the same episode, she doesn't want Percy to return the bolt to prevent a world war. But then at the same time, the guy she looks up to that kept her safe when they were on the run, she now all of a sudden just doesn't trust him at all. It just doesn't, like, it just seems like, oh, our characters know that Luke's the bad guy for some reason. Like, because you have to also think now, not only did Percy figure it out, Annabeth also figured it out more or less. Like,
Hmm.
It's just, I can't accept that given how cunning Luke is as it just, I don't know, it just bothers me. It's another one of those, like, the villains in this show are absolute idiots.
Yeah.
Yep. That's all I'm
I
gonna
mean, for
say.
Annabeth to have like speculations, I would get because she's the daughter of the goddess of wisdom. It would make sense, but not fully knowing it would make it would sound better than how the whole scene actually ends up going.
Yeah, it's just, it
But
goes back to
and
this loop that I've had. The biggest issue that I've had with this show is
mhm,
there's no, like, mystical feeling. There's no mystery. It's just our characters always know everything they're walking into. Nothing is them trying to think cleverly on the spot. How do we overcome a problem? It's just they already know what the problem is before it even happens.
yeah.
And
Um,
yeah,
yeah. I'm actually going to backtrack yet again. I seem to do this a lot. I'm watching this episode, and I'm back on the fight scene, and you see the scene where it looks like Percy uh, gets a nice cut in Luke's chest. Now, in this part, I don't know if he actually misses,
I was a
and
little
it's like
confused by that
Luke.
too.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Luke pulling off a trick to make Percy think he hit him, but at the same time, if you hit somebody, you would feel it.
You would think so.
Or yeah, I don't know, but like when Luke turns around, his shirt's fine and there's no blood, and then he slashes at Percy, who falls. He goes down, he hits his arm, and there's blood on his shirt. So I'm a little confused on that
Yeah, it's a
because
little weird.
yeah, I do like how Percy still feels bad. He goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to," which I thought was kind of weird. It's like you might have meant to, but you still feel bad about it. I just thought I like that part because that is very Percy of Percy.
I agreed.
But I was just very confused by that part because I was like, if you hit him, he would be cut and bleeding. But if you didn't heal him, you would not heal him, hit him, you would have been able to tell. If you swing a stick and you don't hit a wall, nothing happens. You swing a stick and it just even touches the wall, you feel the resistance.
Yeah, you're gonna
So
feel some sort of resist. Like, that's a big thing when it comes to, like, just sword fighting in general. Like, you hit someone, you're gonna feel that that resistance when you go in with your sword or something like that. Like, I don't know. As a Game of Thrones fan, it's a very big part of the books. So yeah, I don't know.
mm,
But this again just doesn't. Luke escapes. Whatever. But we get back to camp, and we note that Percy wants to go see if his mom has been returned, which is very understandable. Kyron notes again that he must be careful. Again, makes sense. He's one of the big three's kids. A lot of monsters. Luke may come after him. Who knows? But I do love, it's a really cute moment where Kyron says that he's proud of Percy. And I thought that was a really good moment. It kind of means more than something like a Poseidon type character. It's like, okay,
yep.
we only really know a little bit about him, but coming from Kyron, it should mean a lot. And it was a really nice moment for this episode in the season. Also, Dionysus, just anytime he comes on screen, he just takes over the entire scene. That's all I gotta say. I perfect casting, perfect dialogue, perfect execution of the character.
Yep.
But at this point, we kind of then go to a scene with Annabeth at Thalia's tree. And one thing I did think, like, when we look at the ending of the show for our main three, Percy's is really the only one that I feel like had any type of development towards. Like, Annabeth is going to see her father, but I can only briefly remember them talking about that, like, once in the show. So it's not as, like, a big of a deal. Whereas, like, in the book, it's more like, okay, this is actually huge, right? Because Annabeth's got some major issues with her stepmom, more or less, and
Yep.
it's a big whole ordeal. Here, it's just like, it almost feels more like just like a nod to the book. It's something that really wasn't established much in the show. It wasn't a big part of Annabeth's journey or personality. So, I thought it was fine, but nothing crazy. The one thing I did love about this scene is Annabeth does not know anything about Disneyland.
Yeah.
One, it's like, hey, Disney, that's some good marketing. I like that. If you're gonna do some shady type of stuff, I appreciate your ad there. But yeah, I think that scene was really good between Percy and Annabeth. Shows some of their chemistry that they've garnered throughout the entire season.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get Mr. exposition himself walks up, says he's gonna get his searcher's license, and I'm just like,
I mean, he got his searcher's license.
Or no, yeah, he got his searcher's license, and I'm just in here like, man, if I was a casual, I'd be so confused. Like, what is he? What even is a searcher's license? I know he explains it kind of here, but
he brings
think
it up
about it.
Maybe twice.
This is Grover's entire story arc was to getting to this moment, proving his value. I'm just curious what Grover told them of why he deserves to get this searcher's license. Like, he did nothing this season outside of bring Annabeth and Percy together. That's his only thing that he's done positive the entire season.
Yeah, we failed the quest that I was sent on to help them. Barely brought the one kid alive that I was supposed to do for redemption.
I sat around all season.
Yeah, I didn't do anything for the whole show. Wait, we're in a show? Yeah, don't worry about it though. But I did go across the whole country and didn't die. And so they probably like, oh, he went across the whole country. Might as well send him. He might not die.
I almost
won't find him, but he won't die.
I almost rolled my eyes when he started talking about this because I'm like, it's too late. You can't just start trying to like say, oh yeah, I got my searcher's license. I can go look for pain and stuff like that. It's like, oh wow, this probably should have been in your character arc at some point throughout the entire season, and then I would have given a shit. But you know, they had to do it because it's a massive part of the next book, which is why it should have been developed in this show, but it wasn't. So
yeah, no, not until the last episode. Once again, expedition dump. More info. Yep. Now I will say though, the way they kind of help move it on into what will become the second season about where he's searching, I did like that. I thought that was smart.
It was good the way they did it. It's just it doesn't feel earned. Like it feels like just okay. Well, this is here to set up the next season.
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel earned, but it was still nice to help with that transition. Because I'm gonna be honest, when you read the book, I did find that very funny where he was in the second book.
Yes, I agree. It did feel it felt very jarring in the second book, but they all make a pact to meet back here next year, and so we'll see how that goes. But Percy then goes, okay, so this is the part of the episode that I got confused about. So
yeah, definitely.
We get this moment where Percy goes back to see if his mom has been brought back. He goes to the same house they were at before, their beach house. And so Percy goes in, and we get this really emotional moment where it's, him being reunited with his mom. It's, her asking what happened and all this and stuff. And I was sitting down going, wow, this is really good. And then all of a sudden, the scene just shifts, and you've got this wrinkly old dude pretending to be Kronos, I guess, just going, Percy, I'm going to find you and kill you and whatever. He's going to manipulate him and stuff. What did you think before we get into the execution of what even happened here? What did you think of Kronos in this, I guess, dream?
I like how he looks. He's been stuck in Tartarus for I don't even know how long it's supposed to be in mythology, but we'll just start when the story was created, well over 2,000 years. So I like that sense that he looks very raggedy. He's thin as all get out. He's got the long beard from like a weary traveler, a guy who's been stuck in jail. You always see in like the cartoons. And he's got tattered clothes, or what's left of them. I liked how he looked. I will say his voice is not what I expected. Once again, I was expecting a lot deeper of a voice, kind of like a Darth Vader, James Earl Jones, very deep voice. Instead, we get this average voice, which I thought was weird. I don't know.
So I'll be interested to see like if this is what they actually are going with, like what Kronos looks like, or if this is just something like some person that Percy is maybe known, or it's just some form that Kronos is taking, because as of right now his physical form is like just all in pieces.
Yeah, it's nothing, and he's still very weak with his magical powers or whatever powers.
Is something I didn't exactly consider, because again, I did not like the way Kronos looked personally. His voice, again, I thought it was fine. Like I didn't think it was terrible. I didn't think it was good. I thought it was just fine. Like it did the job. But the problem that I had, because there's no explanation given here, it's just apparently this was a dream, because Percy is awoken by his mom, and we have a cute scene here, and finally someone says who Kronos is, which is cool. But I'm just left here with like, wait, so was this actually their reunion, and it's more just Percy's redreaming what happened with the Kronos stuff added on top of it? Or
Yeah,
did
no,
this never happen, and we just skipped over them actually, like, reuniting? What
it
is
was
your
very
read on that?
it was strange. I completely agree with you. I mean, I'm not sure how they could how else they could have done it. I mean, with that fast of a transition, it made sense for like time's sake, which shouldn't be their priority, honestly. But it was very strange. I was like, wait a minute. I mean, because it threw me off when he came in.
Yeah.
I was like, oh crap, he's like passed out at Camp Haplet or something. Like Grover and Annabeth are standing above him. But then all of a sudden, his mom's opening the curtains in a bedroom. And it was
It's
just
it
yeah, it was very strange to me.
to me it felt like you fumbled a very like good moment, right? Like, because we as an audience care way more about Sally in the show than I think we do the book. Like, Sally, she's a good character throughout the entire series, but in book one, like, she doesn't like have a ton to work with. Like, she's at the very beginning, at the very end. We don't get no flashbacks in the
Yeah,
middle or the end, so she's more of a character in the show.
yes, it is nice to get a more character from Sally.
And it just feels weird. Like, I don't feel like we needed this dream sequence at all. Like, I don't think we needed Kronos to be here. Like, I think you've already set up pretty well. Like, oh yeah, Kronos is going to be, the big bad of the series. And we've already, it shouldn't feel like it needed to be here. It just felt like it was confusing to just be confusing. I don't, because you would think the way I thought this was going to be done is like, oh yeah, he goes back to the apartment or he goes back to the beach house, whatever. They meet up, and we basically what the dream had until it was interrupted.
Yep.
And then so we go back to this, and I'm just like, okay, this is weird, but all right. But at this point, what I thought was really nice, we get the blue pancakes, and
And the blueberries. That was pretty cool.
that was cool. It does make me question why they get such small details like that right, but they can't get other things right in the show. It's one of my
Yeah.
many frustrations. They get very small details like this right, and then they just, yeah, Hades is just a college guy, but So, again, we have basically the monologue to end out, the episode. There is some stuff afterwards that I didn't know about, but
Yep.
again, I felt like Percy and Sally's reunion seemed incredibly rushed. It didn't really feel like it didn't really feel completed to me. It felt like it just happened, and it all happened off screen, and we're just like looking in on just some random day. Like, it was very weird because it didn't establish, okay, like Percy being able to stay at the camp the whole time or coming back to go to school. It didn't, just kind of said, screw that.
She did say he was getting ready for 7th grade, like it was the first day or something.
Yeah, I know, but it just like skipped the entire, Percy having some decision to make, because it was like,
No, yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, no, that sucks that they didn't add that in. I did like that scene.
and well, the other part, see, I had issues because I didn't know there was an after credit scene, which so this kind of fixed it. But
Oh, yeah.
the idea is like, it also was like, well, wait, where's Gabe? What's the living situation going on right now? So again, I missed out on this part because I just clicked off, when the credits started rolling. But Logan, if you'd like to talk either on any of this part and then finish us out with the the scene at the end, because I didn't watch it, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so it's it's a very Marvel humor scene, but it's also very book accurate. Well, it's kind of book accurate. I do like it. We get a flash to Gabe, right? That's his name, Gabe.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember. I didn't like him. But it comes up to him and he's talking on the phone to a buddy. I don't know who. How he's saying that Sally wants to divorce him, which I don't remember them being married, but not a big deal. He's talking about her getting divorcing him, and he's like, "Well, crap. What am I gonna do? How am I gonna pay rent?" Very kind of like, "Oh, that sucks for you." Not really.
Yeah.
You deserve it. And then he walks up to the door, tries to put his key in, and he realizes that Sally changes the lock. And so you get a little bit of the Marvel humor where he's talking to his buddy. He's like, "Hey, man, do you know how to pick a lock?" And then his buddy hangs up on him, and he's like, "Hello, hello." Which with what phone he has, which is a modern phone, you would hear the end thing, which I thought was kind of funny
Yeah.
or
You're giving
strange.
me
Like,
five. You're
come on,
giving me
we don't
Five Nights of Freddy. Like, hello, hello.
hello, hello. Yeah. So anyway, he puts his phone away and he's like, "Weird. There's a box here. I'm gonna look at it." So he grabs the box. This is a very step-by-step thing, and he's looking at it, and it's the Hermes Express box from earlier, which we all know has Medusa's head in it, but he doesn't. And so it says, "From the gods, return to Percy Jackson." He's like, "From the gods." Oh, that's funny. So he goes to open it. He looks inside, and I don't remember what he said. I'm watching it right now so I can get a better explanation. Okay, so he just says, "Well, that is gross," and he's looking at the head, which I think is kind of weird because it gives him time to look at it.
Yeah,
But then in the
it's
middle of
Marvel
him
humor, but
yeah, no, Marvel humor because he had to add in it was gross, and it's just the way he said it was pretty good. But then he starts turning the stone, and that's where the scene ends, is him just turning the stone. I don't even know if he completely turns. Yeah, okay, so he's like almost done turning the stone. But then that leaves some questions. Like, you just got this stone statue of a man in a hallway
yeah,
that
there's some
used to
logical
live
questions
there
I have here.
with a box, and you're like, "That's weird." Well, there's a statue that's holding this box, and it's almost like it was made perfectly, and the box is a cardboard box, and it's not messed up. I wonder what's in this box, and so you're just gonna get countless statues in the hallway of people looking into the box. So I thought it was funny, it was nice, the Marvel humor, but then it was just also very strange with that whole part.
Given your explanation of it,
Mhm.
I think Sally is more of a villain in the show than she is the book. Like,
Well,
who knows could have picked up that box? Like,
I don't get
anybody
it.
could have seen some random box outside and been like, you know what?
Imma
I'm trying
steal
to see
this.
what this box is. Like, there's desperate people. Like,
Yeah, I mean, she didn't put it there though, so it
well,
was it was the return from the gods.
oh, okay. So Sally had
Yeah,
no
yeah, yeah,
part
yeah.
of it then.
No,
Okay. So
no,
then, okay.
Hermes had, sent it back. Yeah,
Okay.
no, she didn't have any part like she did in the
Okay.
books, which the
All
book
right.
made her more
Then,
of a villain in that sense than the
okay. Then
show.
I like the show's version of things better. Okay. It seems like a god thing to do to just leave something like that lying around for anybody. That makes more sense.
See, I don't know, I kinda like the way that, Book Sally does it.
I like the way Book Sally does it, but I think it's more of a character arc for like Sally in the book, where it's like in the book, Sally doesn't stand up for herself. She takes it. It seems like, well, it doesn't seem like she is getting physically abused. Percy just doesn't see it.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
this thing where it's like she finally stands up for herself and all of this. This is all skipped over in the show because, again, in the show, they have Percy go straight back to Camp Half-Blood. That's not how it goes in the book. In the book, it's Olympus, then goes to see his mom, and then then to Camp Half-Blood, and then back to his mom.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, in the book, it's kind of brutal, but it's because, again,
Very brutal, yes.
she basically just kills him, and then we're also left to like, did she also kill some of his poker mates because they were right there as
Oh, yeah,
well?
and she got a couple, I think it was, like, 4 of them in total, the 4 from the
So
first episode playing poker.
Sally was going on a killing streak. It's more justified in the book because in the show, it's like you can already tell Sally doesn't put up with Gabe's stuff, and Gabe is not as like. Gabe is more like a Marvel like quips type of villain. He's not like as serious, whereas in the book he's kind of like serious. Like, yeah, this dude is a physical abuser. He's just
Yep, and
completely using Sally. It's just
yeah, in the book, he's wife beater T-shirt guy that we all know.
yeah.
He's more of that, and so it is very different from the book, and then also the book does also help explain stuff in the future books. So, what happens in the book, she sells the,
Oh yeah.
4 statues of the guys to an art studio because somebody saw it. I can't remember if she was throwing it away or what, or maybe she was just trying to sell it, and people loved it because it was like,
So
I
real.
forget, something realism.
The
And yeah, and
realism.
she called it, I forget what she
It's a
called it, but
something poker.
yeah,
It's
something
something
poker,
poker or something like that.
and she makes money, like a
That's
lot of
crazy.
money
It's
off of it.
crazy. And she funds her whole
Yeah,
college with it.
and so she's able to fund college to go back, which was a
To be a
kind of
writer. I
yeah, a
respect
semi
that.
big deal with her, yeah, and so I was just like, "Man, they really left out something that was semi important." But they also don't explain it in the show that they were poor to start, or maybe she does, I don't remember. But in the
I don't
book, they're
remember
very
exactly,
poor.
but yeah, they're very
Yeah.
well. No, yeah, I don't know because in the show there's a lot of like points, or not in the show. The book does a lot of points where like it's made quite clear that Percy was very poor. The Lotus Hotel is one that comes to mind.
Yeah, but they also skipped over the part we
I
wanted to talk
know,
about.
because screw
That's a
that.
2 episodes ago problem, yeah.
But yeah, so that's the episode. Logan, I would like to get your rating for the last episode.
You know, I'm gonna be honest. I would probably give this episode an 8. It was a pretty good overall episode. Definitely still had its bad parts, but it was a lot better than episode 6 and 7. So I enjoyed it.
I agree on the fact that it's better than episode 6 and 7. It was definitely an improvement. If you take out the very small Luke segment of this episode, it's an 8. But to me, I can't, because of the way they did that and the way how I have just don't like the way they did it. It's probably a 7 for me. You could convince me to go 7.5, but as of right now, I'm around a 7. I thought it was good. I just think it had issues.
Yep.
Basically what you could say for the entire season. It was good, had issues.
Had some good parts and had some bad parts.
So yeah, we'll probably do a conclusion at some point for the season. Again, it won't be like one of these where it's really long. It'll just be like, what was the things that we thought were good from the season, what things were bad, what things they can improve, and what things, you keep the same for the next season. But yeah, that is our, more or less, our Percy Jackson review. Let us know if you want us to cover other shows. I know some people had wanted us to do the Last Airbender stuff, so maybe we'll do that. I don't know. But yeah, so thank you, Logan, for coming on this journey with me. We're finally done.
Yes, finally. Thank you for having me on here. It was very fun to do this.
Don't worry. Next time he's gonna have a webcam. Don't worry. And by webcam, I mean a phone.
A phone, yes.
All right. Bye, guys.